Hello students, welcome to my next lecture. Today we are going to talk about designing the service process. I Dr. Rohan Prabhakar Devale welcome you all. Chapter objectives are this chapter is about how to design the service process. Here we are going to learn about why is service process design important? What are the main types of service process? How can managers engineer service processes? How can service processes be repositioned? How can managers harness technology in service process design? We'll start with the introduction. If you remember in the previous chapter, we discussed the designing from the customer's perspective, designing their experience of the service provided. In this particular chapter, we want to look at the design of the service process from provider's perspective with a focus on efficiency. There is not to say one or the other one is important. The process has to be designed both to be efficient and to deliver the right experience. Products and benefits are required by the service concept. We will also cover the design of non-visible back-office processes and the role of technology in the service design. Processes are lifeblood and lifeblood of the service operations. Rather, rather like DNA providing the pattern for a living organization, a good process ensures the service delivery consistency time after time and creates desired experience and outcomes for the customer, thus delivering the service concept. Process design, whether for all call centers, doctors, social workers, or management consultants, describe and prescribe the procedures to be followed, and how staff will use or interact with the other resources, such as materials or equipment, in order to deliver the service concept. Let's take an example of a call center. Call center agents in a telephone bank are given clear guidance as how to speak to the customer, what questions to ask, and what performance standards are expected. The agents also have access to screen on their customers or computers to promote them to ask particular questions or to help them answer routine inquiries. Finally, the information system will guide the agents through the customer data requirements to be filled in during and immediately after the call. Moving to a macro level, that is larger level, processes managers and the designers have to pay attention to how the various activities or sub processes link together to provide a service concept. In the telephone bank, the service is simply that delivered by the agent, but also involves loan application processes, credit card issuing processes, international funds transfer processes, and so on. The whole interrelated chain of processes need to be carefully designed, managed, and controlled to deliver value to the customers and to the organizations. Unfortunately, many large organizations have such a complex of web processes, both functionally and regionally based, that the coordination across the processes seems to be almost impossible task. Designing and then controlling service processes is not easy. Processes are as varied as the service organization on which they are a part. Some are extremely flexible, able to meet a wide variety of customer requirement using the same set of resources. Some management consultants, for example, are able to utilize a wide range of approaches in developing customized solutions to their clients. Other processes, such as many calls and contract call centers, are much closely defined in the order to achieve benefits of consultancy, consistency, and efficiency. In a similar manner, some processes depends a great deal on skill, knowledge, and expertise of individual employees, such as medical doctors in general practice, while other processes employ resources such as technology or information system to reduce the dependency on the individual skills, thus enabling the service organization to deal with greater volumes and grow geographically. Now, why service process design is important? Excellent service, which satisfies the customer and meets the strategic intention of the organization, is usually the result of careful design and delivery of a whole set of interrelated processes. These processes not only process customers to create the customer experience, but also process materials, information, and even staff. Many service processes are therefore quite complex, involving many interrelated processes, departments, people, decisions, and activities. Although the service process is only one element of the service operation, it is the glue that holds the rest. It is customers, staff, equipments, and materials all together, and it is the mechanism that delivers the service concept, creating the customer experience and delivering the service outcomes. It is important to note that when we are talking about the processes, we are not simply referring to the point where the customer receives the service. Service providers that consistently meet both the cost and quality targets know that they must manage the chain of processes from start to finish, rather than simply the final stage of delivery to the customer. It is also crucial to remember that services frequently fail because they have been inadequately designed and executed. What are the main types of service processes? If you remember again in the first chapter, we have defined that a service is a process or activity, and the service received by the customer is their experience of the service provided, which is which results in outcomes such as products, benefits, emotions, judgments, and intentions. The service process is a set of interrelated activities, that is processes, that together in an appropriate sequence delivers the service concept and creates the customer experience and outcomes. Some processes involve the treatment of the customer or user or something belonging to them. The customer often performs some role in the service process or in a part of it, that is co-production. Most processes require other resources such as staff, equipment, and facilities. All processes, whether front office or back office, process customer, material, or information. The back office of a restaurant processes foods and turns ingredients into finished dishes. Its front office processes customer during their evening and provide them with a great experience of which the food is only a part. An estate agent processes information about houses and takes customer through the buying or selling process. There are three key questions operations managers need to ask to understand the nature of their service processes to help them engineer their processes. These questions are: how much service variety does the process have to deal with? What type of process is it in terms of volume and variety that it can handle? And where is the value added for the customer? Service product variety. In the simple terms, a car servicing shop might be seen to have one end-to-end process, which includes sub-processes or tasks such as customer greeting or discussion of the job to be done. Initial logistics, part procurement, car service, customer billing, and car return. Yet through this one process may flow a variety of types of job. Some may be routine, such as 10,000 mile oil change. Others may be less routine but still standard activities, such as a gearbox repair. Others may be non-standard activities that happens infrequently and for which it can be more difficult to predict how long they will take and or how many resources have will require, such as dealing with the intermittent electric fault. The first step in designing and managing the service processes is to understand the mix of these runners, repeaters, and strangers which the process has to deal. Now we'll understand what are runners, repeaters, and strangers. Runners are standard activities predominantly found in high volume operation such as request for the balance of a bank account made to a telephone call center. From an operations point of view, runners are often relatively predictable, allowing the operations manager to match the resources to demand and to forecast demand with reasonable accuracy. And runners lend themselves to efficient operations through tight process control or automation. And what are repeaters? Repeaters are also standard activities, possibly more complex than runners, but which occur less frequently. Repeaters may be created by default rather than by design. When an organization significantly expands the range of services it offers, this may mean that processes that were designed to handle relatively few standard activities must now deal with each greater variety. Banks have experienced this problem, having moved from providing one or two standard deposits or checking amounts to offering personalized financial packages. As a result, repeaters often absorb more resource than an equivalent runner because lower volumes cannot justify the process automation. There may be some degree of relearning or readjustment of a process required for each reoccurrence of a repeater activity if the previous occurrence was sometime in the past. Strangers are non standard activities, perhaps associated with a one off project or activity. New service introduction may give rise to stranger activities in the first instance, which usually will migrate to repeaters or runners as the service volume increases. Strangers are the less efficient and indeed the most difficult processes for operations managers to deal with because it may be more difficult to forecast the demands because the resources required to deal with may be less certain because they are least well defined in terms of resources requirements. However, an organization that is used to dealing with strangers will be much more flexible and adaptable than one that is used to dealing with repeaters or runners. Next concept is managing runners, repeaters, and strangers. Just look at this table. This table gives the examples of these three types of activities in three different organizations like car service, international airline, and hospital. The problem is that all three can and sometimes do exist within the same organization, such as car servicing shop described earlier. Importantly, the relative mix of these activities will suggest the most appropriate type of service process. In addition, the type of service process may limit or restrict the variety of activities that can be carried out. A car service shop that accepts a wide range of jobs will need to have a more flexible process than one that focuses totally on doing oil changes. It will also need more flexible and skilled mechanics and will not have a high throughput. The oil change specialist may have a high throughput and will need less skilled mechanics, but it will need to turn away the potential higher margin jobs that are outside its area of competency. This takes us back to the typically and typology of the service processes we have introduced in chapter number 2. We will also return to the idea of runners, repeaters, and strangers, where we'll examine the problems posed for the resource management when the mix of service requirement changes faster than the processes. For example, if we mix surgical procedures in the hospital changed so that there were fewer complex or new operations and more simple routine procedures. This might mean that some of the more highly qualified or paid surgeons would be surplus to the requirements, and that there might be insufficient junior doctors to carry out more modern activities. A possible short term solution might be to employ higher paid consultant surgeons on the routine work. This would dramatically affect the cost base and would no doubt seriously reduce the morale of the surgeons. You can pause the video and you can look at this particular table. We'll move further for the types of processes, volume and variety. In this particular section, we'll start by providing more details of the key differences of the extreme high volume or low variety and low volume and high variety and capability and commodity process. Capability processes. We'll start with capability processes. Processes that lie in the top hand corner of the volume variety matrix. Just look at this figure. Are typically focused on providing a capability of their customers or users rather than the pre-prepared services. As such, they do not have the clarity of the service concept that characterizes high volume consumer services, but they have a much more flexibility to change the service outcomes. Customer service and the service delivery process. These processes are more suited to managing stranger than runners. Examples of this type of service includes traditional professional services such as lawyers or accountants, particularly those small firms that deal with a wide variety of work for their clients. As the task of these organizations is to ensure that they maintain their skill base, the firm of lawyers must ensure that it retains its capability to deal with the employment or patent law, just as business school must employ professors of their major management disciplines. A number of attributes generally apply to this type of service operations. That includes the service concept is based on the provision of a particular skill set or knowledge base. And this capability frequently resides with a specific individuals and may be lost to the organization where the individual lives. Next is commodity processes. Commodity processes are ideal for runners. These operations are exemplified by high volume consumer services such as fast food restaurants, general insurance providers, and retailers. The service concept for this organization is of necessary clear and relatively rigid. This particularly applies when the service must be delivered across the several service locations by a wide variety of service employees. Whereas capability operations offer solutions to their customers, commodity operations are much clearer in their definition and marketing of the service concept. They will tend to compete on their ability to provide consistent operational quality in a competitive price. One of the most significant service dimension will frequently relate to the availability of service through the absence of physical cues or through rapid telephone response. Examples of these service operations include multi-site services such as restaurant chains, supermarkets, or other retail operations, centralized communication-based services such as direct insurance, telephone banking or catalog-based selling, or equipment repair services based on simple replacement processes such as car tire and exhaust centers. Central tasks of majority of these operations include maintaining consistency of service delivery to ensure that customer expectations are met across all the counters, providing an appropriate level of service and managing resource productivity to tight their targets. Next, we'll talk about profiling processes. This particular figure summarizes the key points from the preceding section in the form of a chart, that is capability commodity profile, to assist the operations manager to locate their existing process on the capability commodity spectrum and to determine where action needs to be taken to make appropriate adjustment. The figure illustrates the profile of a motor insurance provider, showing the difference between its direct operations, providing policies to individual users, and its support for insurance brokers. Use of this profiling approach identifies the potential mismatch to be addressed by the service managers. This frequently arises because the service task has changed, whereas the service processes have not evolved to meet the new requirements adequately. For the insurance company that is shown in this particular figure, a shift from broker operations to direct operations may well mean that the processes are more flexible than necessary and some staff may be overqualified for their new duties. This move would almost certainly mean a significant change in management style and, of course, a change in the priorities among the key performance indicators utilized. The direct operations would probably concentrate on fast response and low cost, while broker operations would place more emphasis on flexibility and personal service. It should be understood that using the volume variety matrix or capability commodity profile to compare and contrast processes in totality, different service sector is of limited value. It is almost meaningless to compare a small firm of corporate lawyers, that is capability, with the restaurant chains, that is commodity. It is more helpful to compare different process types within the same sector as in the figure shown and in the next figure. This is off diagonal process. Now hernia operations are now standard procedures, although there was a some time when there were pioneer surge category like 8.3. There are many advantages of being this commodity area as the hernia hospitals demonstrate. The hernia operations are carried out their most effectively, cost effectively, with the lowest amount of rework and these high levels of patient satisfaction. This focused approach has now been replicated across the world and extend to similar surgical procedures. In this case, the move from capability towards the commodity does not desilk the surgeon, but it does mean that surgeons may become increasingly specialist and less able to revert to more general surgery. So this is about the off-diagonal processes. The line of best fit between the capability and commodity is in reality rather wider than it was portrayed as being at the start of this section. More flexible processes, then better support systems, or better training of the employees. It means that the effective area can be extended. Now you can pause the video and you can look out this figure, and I will just switch to the next figure. However, the operations may sometimes find that their processes are operating uh, suboperationally, suboptimally, because there is not an exact fit between the existing processes and the market requirements. Processes in the top right hand of the corner of this particular figure are attempting to provide high volume services that are capable of great flexibility. Processes in this particular area, sometimes referred to as mass customization, attempt to provide the customer with whatever they want, however they want it, and whenever they want it at an affordable price. One example of this is the telephone or internet banking, which, although not providing the complete range of banking services, provide a wide range of service 24 hours a day, every day of the year, accessible from the telephone or computer and at little cost. Any operations wishing to push their processes in this direction need to think very carefully about the technology and skills required to operate efficiently, effectively, and profitably. In this area, we will return to this area at the end of the chapter. Operating in the simplicity area is the next part. So the issue here is that operation is unlikely to be operating as effectively as it might because it has low volume. This could mean that either resources are underutilized or the organization is unwilling at this stage to invest in the process technology to decrease its unit cost. However, this position could suit a small niche player such as a microbrewery that produces very small quantities of a single beer of consumption in one or two outlets, or a corporate lawyer with just one or two clients. It is likely that the margins entered by these niche players far outweigh any operational inefficiencies. However, this position in the bottom left-hand corner of this particular figure could be employed by large or small organization as a pilot or as a startup operations. Hence its alternative description as an incubators. So this was about operating in complexity area and operating in a simplicity area. Next is adding value for the customer. In operations, we must be careful to recognize where value is added, or perhaps more accurately, where value should be added. We are simultaneous and sometimes guilty of not being sufficiently clear in our definitions, and therefore the value analysis of added value becomes muddled. The main types of the value that we have introduced in the first chapter were the customer value, that is value in use, what the customer recognizes and pays for. Next was the staff value, a better experience of the staff. And third one was the organizational contribution that includes satisfied customer, improved processes, and reduced cost, profitability and financial success, brand value, competitive advantage, and strategic success that is better for the organization. When we receive a level of service that is beyond our expectation, we sometimes term this as added value, though it might be accurately be described as high perceived level of service. The service process designer must be clear in this definition in order to avoid the solving the problem or wrong problem. Take a bank, for example. We, the customers, and even the bank staff and the management may say that the personal interaction between the customer and the bank staff is important, and indeed it is important. But from the operations perspective, the bank is essentially a big factory that processes millions of financial transactions every day, most of which, such as maintaining and standing orders and direct debits, we do not see or even think about unless there is a problem. The bank certainly has to get its customer interaction right, but the main value it provides is in handling our accounts and in managing financial movements. Is there, it is therefore important to view service operations in their entirely, that is, the multiplicity of the interrelated processes, both front office and back office, and recognize there the bulk of the value adding activity lies. Next part is identifying the key decisions area. The key decision area matrix, that is KDAM. Just look at this particular figure. You can pause the video and you can see the figure. So the explanation is the key decision area matrix provides a means of categorizing the service processes. This matrix helps us understand where the prime value is added and where and therefore what should be the key focus of attention for operations manager. The figure identifies four types of decision area: the area within the dotted line, in the relationship between C, F, and B, that is customer, front office, and back office, foreigners, repeaters, and strangers or repeaters, depending upon the level of customer involvement. Before exploring this matrix further, it is necessary to define what do you understand by customer involvement. By this we mean that the extent to which the customer is an intrinsic part of the service delivery process and thus can be uh, though and be thought of as a resource for the organization. There is difference between, therefore, the customer contract and customer involvement. For example, if you stay in a luxury hotel and service operations can be described as having high customer contact rather than requiring high customer involvement. Customer directly experiences the facilities of the hotel and there are a large number of hotel staff to attend to meet their every need. The hotel would move higher on the customer involvement scale if you were required to make your beds and cook your own meals. The service factory. The service factory is a high volume, low variety operating, dealing in the runners and occasional repeaters. With the low customer involvement, examples include high volume customer services such as retail operations, restaurants, chains, and many financial services. The key decision area for these services is in the back office, where the prime task is efficient and consistent. High volume operations, for example, if a bank wishes to offer a faster check clearing service to its customer, it will examine the capability of the back office first and foremost. These operations will place as much as of the value adding activities as possible in the back office. This is not to say that there is not a role for the front office staff. The front office role is to make this service factory seems friendly and to give the impression that each customer is valued and special. The front office, however, has no ability to offer significantly different services to individual customers. These organizations may look to provide a degree of personalization in the front office, but without engaging customers to make too many special requests, which tend to reduce the efficiency of the operations as a whole. There is also role of customers in the service factory. Customers are trained to fit into the service delivery program, filling the right forms, standing in the correct queues, and not making the standard request. Do it yourself service, that is DIY services. DIY services are high volume, low variety processes with runners and repeaters, but with high levels of customer involvement. We find examples of this type of service in the leisure industry and tourism, and in sports and fitness clubs. Self-service retailing is also moving from the service factory towards DIM service quadrant. It could be argued that many internet-based retail services are also found in this particular quadrant. We have drawn the key decision area around the total customer, front office and back office chain. This reflects the fact that these services have to be balanced decisions in all areas. Significant effort lies in the design work for the initial setup of the facilities and networks. Amazon.com has devoted much design time to its internet service and setting up the back office distribution activities to fulfill the customer orders. The capability of the customer must also be included in this design, brief to ensure that the service runs smoothly. In the case of Amazon.com, the front office decisions regarding the decision of the website and its ease of access and use of customers are also critical. Some of these internet-based services rely on significant customer capabilities in terms of both expertise and equipment. The music sites that allows the customer to download album tracks, creating their own customized collection, currently require a level of sophistication beyond some potential users. Service projects. Service projects utilize processes that are predominantly repeaters and strangers, with limited customer involvement. A good example of this type of service is provided by market research company. There is frequently an intensive initial diagnostics or a specification phase carried out with the customer by front office personnel. The second phase consists of research work carried out by the staff in the back office without the presence of the customer. There is usually a final stage where results are presented and discussed. In many small market research firms, of course, the front and back office are one and the same, although this become less common as the organization grows. The principle remains, however, the service project organization must have much closer links between the front office and the back office that is necessary for the service factory, not least because there will be dealing predominantly with strangers and some repeaters rather than the runners. With restaurants' variability in demand volumes and process time, the front office staff must have more skill and flexibility than in service factory. When face to face with a potential customer, frontline employees and service professional must be able to demonstrate considerable technical as well as interpersonal skill. Service partnership. Service partnerships involve highly customized service processes with high customer involvement, dealing in either strangers or repeaters. The key decision area is around the customer front office partnership. The theme is very much one of co-development, where the service provider is initially and intimately involved with the clients. For example, is provided by sort of a consultant who works with the management teams in the process of strategy development, where there is an expectation that part of the service outcome is that of consultant will mentor the management team members as the part of their personal development. In this case, the customer is an integral part of the service process. The challenge for these organizations is to manage the communication link between the front office and back office. The back office often provides administrative support and may be perceived to be lower status than the professionals in the front office. Next part is a service mix of decision areas. The challenge for a larger complex service organization is that all four types of key decisions areas may be represented in their operations. To take examples of a bank, service factory, that is retail banking for consumers, high volume standard accounts. Then service projects, business loans for entrepreneurs, service partnership, managing investment portfolios for larger corporate clients, then DIY service that we have just seen, so internet and telephone banking. It is important to recognize and manage this diversity. It is increasingly true that one size fits all is not appropriate. Each operation will require different performance criteria, technology, management style, and ideally different processes and people. Task allocation. Operation manager must make the decision as to which task is carried out in the front office, which in the back office, and which by the customers. The service concept extends or changes. It is likely that the positioning of the service, as shown in this particular figure on the display, will also change, and too soon will be allocation of the guest tasks. This figure illustrates some examples of task reallocation which are described here. First is reinsurance form. So operating in the City of London has traditionally based its business on cultivating strong personal client relationship, but is under increasing pressure to demonstrate the value and to deliver cost reductions. Moving from a service partnership approach to a service project involvement, the firm realized that the time spent with the individual clients was becoming less effective and contributed to the retention of the ever decreasing number of clients. This shift required a major cultural change to reduce the time spent with the clients and to develop standard ways of working. It also required a significant investment in the information system to support this change. Then a retailer. Retailer is moving from the physical presence in a shopping mall to also providing internet-based shopping. This represents a move from the organizational largely focused on back-office functions such as purchasing and logistics to one that must add to this ability to design the system and enable the customer to play an increasingly role in the delivery system. These systems require a greater sophistication on the part of the customer, perhaps forcing the service provider to give greater thought to the implementation of new technology in the term of initial customer training. Next is the system suppliers. System suppliers has largely been concerned with the provision of telecommunication and the computer boxes. Its operations have been focused on the production of these systems as efficiently as possible in the back office. The key area matrix, that is KDMA, can give an insight into the impact of these changes in the service concept as they relate to the changing role of the three components of the customer, then front office and back office. It should be noted that the introduction of new services may mean the traditional distinctions between the front and back office may become somewhat blurred. This has been the experience of organizations implementing multimedia contact centers to replace person-to-person service and telephone call centers. The result has been that the customers frequently have access to the areas within the organization hitherto protected from the customer contract. Next part is how can managers engineer the service processes. In the previous chapter, we have provided several tools that can be used to design the customer experience. These are important because they focus on outside-in perspective. However, there, there are service and several other tools that are very important for designing the new service processes and to help the access and improve them, the design of existing ones, whether the back office or front office. These include process mapping, lean thinking, Kaizen, Six Sigma, and value stream mapping. Most of these tools we'll discuss in the next coming lectures. So we'll start with the process mapping. Process mapping is charting of a service process in order to assist the evaluation, design, and development of new or existing processes. There are many types of charting methods in use. However, the essence of mapping is to capture all the activities and their relationship on the paper, which normally requires a team of people who understand the various aspects of the process. It is perhaps not surprising that all the activities is extremely time consuming, but it can yield some significant results. The first of which is usually the emergence of a shared value and understanding of process by those involved in it, and thus a realization of that role in the end-to-end process. This figure shows simplified process map of a loan application. You can pause the video and you can learn the process. Next part is how can service process be repositioned. Many service processes are under pressure to change. High variety, low volume, capability operations dealing with the strangers may be under pressure to increase the volume or drive down the high cost of operating such procedures. Low variety, high volume commodity type of processes dealing primarily with runners may be under pressure to become more flexible and customize their services for customers. Next part is from capability towards commodity, pressure to change. Many innovative organizations have a requirement for their growth. The small firm of consultants that has built up a local or national practice may seek to become internationally recognized. With a global company, it may be that an innovative solution developed for individual customer can be packaged and sold to much wider range of clients internationally. To do this, a number of issues must be addressed. Customers may require greater level of consistency across the service transactions carried out by different providers across the locations. For example, a technical consultancy working for a multinational customer must be able to provide the same solution in all locations, probably at the same or at the similar price. Larger organizations tend to extremely conscious on their image, which may entail setting the strict guidelines for their staff as to scope and style of work carried out, from commodity towards the capability. Examples of this type of shift may be found in high volume customer services. To avoid the trap of becoming a commodity service competing on the price alone, these organizations may extend the range of services on offer, perhaps providing a degree of customization for individual customers. There are two aspects or two principles: develop standard modules. So companies may develop menus of the standard services, which may then be arranged in appropriate combination to provide a degree of customization for individual customers. The customization therefore lies in the management of the combination rather than in the development of new services. An example of this type of mass customization is provided by holiday resorts that allow customers to choose a limited number of activities from a predetermined list. Next is postpone customization until the latest possible stage. In this approach, the delivery process is standardized for all stages until the last. This allows the service operations to gain all the efficiency and consistency benefits of a high volume or low variety process. Courier services are adopting this type of approach by using their basic distribution networks for all customers, but using different mechanisms to deliver the package to its final destination. Strategies to change. The majority of the service operations, of course, do not lie in the extremes of the diagonal. For those in the center of the spectrum between the capability and commodity, there are four basic strategies to deal with the transaction at whichever point they lie. This is illustrated in this particular figure. Few organizations are able to manage the changes without some degree of disruptions and the directions for change illustration. Therefore, may not be what was planned or uh, desired, but describe what actually occurred. So there are four parts like building capability through the systems and training, then building capability through incremental development, then moving to a commodity by constraining the flexible resources, and moving a commodity through movement or sorry investment in the process capability. Next part is managing the gap between market position and operations. In the previous section, we have discussed that there may often diverge between the market position and the operational approach. In selling the benefits of a particular service, is it is common to find the companies emphasis customer flexibility. So, providing a personal service with continuing to operate on a mass production basis. This particular figure illustrates this effect. This is often a very effective strategy. The main danger here is that the customer satisfaction will fall if the gap is too great between what is offered and what is delivered. To counteract this, organization may adopt several strategies to manage the gap. That includes the customer service departments, then name the personal contracts, then account or client managers, change the nature of the service or change the customer expectations and so on. Next part is how managers harness technology in the service process design. So technology and information systems either sophisticated in simple or intrinsic elements of the operational processes. Therefore, the implementation of a new information system or the introduction of a revolutionary new technology can transfer the process and the customer experiences. In common with many services, changing technologies increasingly mean that the organization deals with the customer in different ways. Behind all this lie two customer requirements, which impacts on the design processes on the service processes, that is immediate and comprehensive access and control. What is the role of technology in service process design? The aim of this particular section is to discuss the role of technology in the service process design, recognizing that information system and the development of these facility technologies will continue to be areas of the key decision making for foreseeable futures. So these roles includes the multiplying the knowledge, then streamlining the services, customizing and personalizing the services, increase the reliability, uh, then augmenting the services, to which we can add reducing the cost and increasing the customer control. Multiplying the knowledge, there are a number of ways that technology can bring both flexibility and extension to the service concept by leveraging the multiplying knowledge. That includes leveraging knowledge about the customer, leveraging knowledge about the service product, and multiplying knowledge about the customer's use of product. Streamline services technology may be used to eliminate the steps in the service process. It is particularly valuable when applied to activities that have direct bearing on the customer experience. Car rental companies have understood that business customers in particular do not want to spend amount or large amount of time either filling in paperwork to collect their car or waiting to return it. And this relatively simple information system improves service times and reduce some error rates. So we should think of the concepts like customizing and personalizing service, increasing the reliability, that is service reliability, and facilitating the communications. With this, we are moving to the last part. This part is called as a summary. We'll just summarize the thing, whatever we have learned. So we have learned what is the service process or designing, why the service process design is important. So excellent service which satisfies the customer and meets the strategic intention of the organization is usually the result of careful design and delivery of a whole set of interrelated processes. The service process is the glue that holds the rest, it is customer, staff, equipment, and material together, and is the mechanism that delivers the service concept, creating the customer's experience and delivering the service outcomes. What are the main types of service processes? A service process is the set of interrelated activities that together in an appropriate sequence delivers the service concept and creates the customer experience and outcomes. Runners, repeaters, and strangers help identify the extent of variety to be dealt with the process. Value may be added in the front office or back office or both with varying degree of customer involvement. The volume variety matrix helps identify the key attributes of the service process and the implications of attempting to deal with the wide range of tasks with the one process. Process profiling can help identify what needs to be changed to reposition a process. Next is how can managers engineer service processes. So process mapping is an important and powerful tool. Process mapping is the charting of a service process in order to assist in the evaluation, design and development of new or existing processes. How can service processes be repositioned? There are pressures on many processes to change their nature. Organization must manage the gap between what is marketed and what is delivered. How can managers harness technology in service process design? Technology and information system, either sophisticated or simple, can transfer the process and create a new competitive or working environment. Few of the questions for discussion. What examples you can give of capability and commodity services organization? What are the operations management challenges for each type? Select a process such as cooking a meal for a friend or arranging a holiday. Sketch out the service process and evaluate it. Give examples of recent innovation in service process through the use of technology. What have been the challenges and benefits? Questions for managers. What is the dominant culture of your service management approach? Is it capability or commodity based? Are there any people and activities that do not fit with this culture? How well are they managed? Is there a mismatch between the current performance requirement of your service processes and the task for which they were designed, how you identified future requirements before attempting to redesign your processes, identify opportunities to re-engineer some of your processes using technology. How would you manage this innovation? With this, we'll just finish this chapter. I wish you all the best for your studies.